Ragin Cajuns baseball sweeps Georgia State, but does that make a clear path towards an NCAA Regional? We'll talk about it here on Ragin Rundown. What's good, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into another episode here on Ragin Rundown, the show where you will know all things UL sports. I'm your guy, Jamarcus Fitzpatrick, but you can always call me Fitz. And on today's rundown, we will be recapping Louisiana Baseball's sweep of Georgia State. We'll talk about some of the standout players in the series, and then we'll try to plan out or see what is the path for the Cajuns to get a bid in an NCAA Regional and make it to the postseason. Coming into this weekend, Louisiana was 27-18 overall. They were 9-12 in the Sun Belt Conference, and that put them around 11th or 12th place in the standings, which if the conference tournament had started going into that weekend, they would have not been playing in it because it's the top 10 teams, right? After a strong showing in this past weekend, it now completely flips the script for them. And now they're in a much better position after a strong showing in game one and then strong pitching throughout the entire series. They've now completely flipped things around and have made a clear path for themselves to be able to go on a run and potentially make it to an NCAA bid. So let's recap the series. Game one was the Molly Wop show, right? Talk about the ultimate bit of motivation that they got as Jonathan LaCroix would have his jersey retired. The number 21 is now out there in center field next to Ron Guidry and Tony Robichaux. And he gave them some words of encouragement. And I think that ignited a fire in the team because afterwards they would absolutely put a whooping on Georgia State as they would win in run rule fashion 14-1. It was an offensive explosion as they scored 7 runs there in the third inning and 10 runs in the first 3. And that essentially put the game away for Georgia State as they were never able to respond. They went up 14-0 at one point and ultimately were able to pick up the 14-1 victory. And not to mention, the Cajuns had to overcome a little bit of adversity as game one would have been on Friday, but because of weather, Saturday became a doubleheader. So they had the LaCroix jersey retirement, they had game one, and then they had to play the second game later that night. So they get through game one. As Colt Brown would go 2 for 3, he had a home run to kick things off offensively on the day. He had 2 RBI. Donovan LaSalle had a home run himself and 3 RBI. Drew Markle has gotten back in his groove. He had 2 hits and 2 RBI. And Andrew Herrmann has continued to be a complete dominant pitcher throughout this season. And he had another a complete game, 1 earned run, and 6 strikeouts. This is the blueprint that you need to have. You're not going to be able to have this every single game, but as long as you can have early offense and you can have strong pitching, you're not going to win 14-1 every single game, but you can win 6-3. You can win 7-4. You can win 7-2. It's multiple different ways to do it if you can continue to repeat this formula that they laid out here in game one. So after picking up the first victory, now you're rolling over and they bring out the USL uniform. So now the nostalgia is reigning in, right? And they go out and they pick up a 5-1 victory. This one was a little bit more controlled. There was more situational offense for them. And again, the pitching staff continued to have dominance. Noah Lewis was 3 for 5 and had 2 RBI. Mark Collins had 2 hits and an RBI. And Cody Brasch, who had been the ultimate closer for you in the early parts of the season, has now become the ultimate starter for you. Now, in game 2, he goes 6 2/3 innings. He gives up 1 hit, and no earned runs. And then on the back end, Tyler Pappenbrock is able to come in and give you a save, and he gave you some back end stability, which is huge because Cody Brasch had been the guy for you that you always needed to come in and slam the door shut. Tyler Pappenbrock is now kind of assuming that role as roles have shifted throughout this bullpen throughout the season. So you have back-to-back pitching gems, and that's what helped you to win this series. And you get both of them done in one day. It's an emotional day for everybody because of what that day represented with LaCroix getting his jersey retired, but you're able to compartmentalize. You get out there on the field, you dominate in game one, and then you slam the door shut there in game two to win the series. So now it's about going in that second day and getting the series sweep, which now puts you completely in the driver's seat in terms of flipping the standings around. So game 3 was a close one. The Cajuns win 4-3. It was tight. It was gritty, but it was a win. They were able to win despite being out hit. They only had 5 hits in this one to Georgia State's 11. Griffin Hebert had the go-ahead home run. Drew Markle again comes up with an RBI double. Sawyer Pruitt gets you the win out of the bullpen. Tyler Pappenbrock once again gets his second save of the weekend. He is going to be pivotal for you if this bullpen continues to stay in the way that they're using this rotation, with a Cody Brasch starting on Friday night, an Andrew Herrmann starting on Saturday, and then a Ty Roman giving you a start on Sunday. Tyler Pappenbrock is going to be a key piece for you that can be able to slam the door shut whenever you have built up an early lead and need to be able to close the door in some games, especially once you get to regionals, right? So you're able to get this weekend sweep, and it flips things around for you because, like I mentioned, you were 11th or 12th in the standings coming into the weekend. Now you're 6th, right? You're 12-12 in the league, and you're in 6th place. You're on a 5-game win streak. Of those 5 victories, you've had 2 run rule victories, one against Southern, and then on Saturday in game 1 against Georgia State. You have 7 games left, and you've won 8 of your last 10. So you're peaking towards the end of the season, but you still have this small window, 2 more weeks to go, with a midweeker against UNO, and then the weekend series at App State, and then back at home against the leader in the Sun Belt in Coastal Carolina, and a team that is top 10, right? So it's going to be big, and we're going to get more into that, of how important those 2 series are going to be towards your postseason run. If you're able to put it together, we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. So next, we'll talk about the weekend standout guys. Noah Lewis had 5+ hits, and he was the table setter for you all weekend. As someone that is a true freshman, he has continued to be able to find ways to just get on base. And when you're able to do that with the speed that he has as a combination, he is sometimes almost a guaranteed guy that if you get him to second base, he's coming home. All you need to get is a base hit, right? And when you have those type of pieces, you know that if you send him up to bat, it's going to be able to get a run scored at that time. Steven Spalita had multi-hit games, and he's been consistent with the contact that he's had on the balls that he's seen, and being able to drive in runs and be really dominant from behind the plate. Drew Markle, like I said, had been on kind of a downward streak, and now he's kind of picking back up. He got extra base hits and some clutch RBIs throughout the weekend, and that's what you're going to need from a veteran player in his 3rd season, and it's been very, very important towards this run that you've currently been on as of late. And then Colt Brown, again, another freshman, giving you some power there in game 1 to kick things off in that run rule victory that you had. The pitching staff, obviously, Andrew Herrmann and Cody Brasch as a combination has been absolutely lethal for any offense that comes to the Teague on the road, no matter who it is. When they are clicking together, they're nearly unstoppable. They go 13 2/3 innings combined and 1 earned run the entire weekend between 2 games, which obviously is there on Saturday in that doubleheader. And then the back end of your bullpen was able to close the door. Hayden Pearson, the Ascension Episcopal product, Sawyer Pruitt, and Tyler Pappenbrock, who I mentioned has been a huge piece to you and will continue to have to be that as the season progresses on. Shout out to the back end of your bullpen for being able to get that done. So from a big picture perspective, your pitching has continued to carry you throughout this series, and your offense did enough to jumpstart things there in game 1. So again, the winning formula for you right now is to be able to get offense going early, 3-4 runs in an inning or so, get it rolling, and have your pitching staff to get the door closed early, and then be able to slam it all the way once you get there on the back end. So now the thing that's left on the schedule, 7 more games, and now you're looking towards how can you get to the postseason. We're going to talk about how there could be a path for the Cajuns as the season continues to wind down and what they need to do in order to make an NCAA regional. We'll talk about it when we come back here on Ragin Rundown. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Ragin Rundown. We're going to get back into the action in just a second. But before we do, please do me a favor, like this video, share it, and leave a comment down below. But most importantly, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That way you can see episodes just like this one. If you're listening, please follow the podcast feed, rate the show, and leave us a review because that's going to help us get in front of more Ragin Cajun fans just like yourself. So after this weekend, the Cajuns are now 30-18 overall. So you've made that 30 win, you've eclipsed that 30 win mark, and you're 12-12 in the Sun Belt standings, which, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, is in sixth place. You're behind Troy, who's 13-11, in South Alabama, a team that you beat earlier in the season that's 14-10. App State, who's your weekend opponent coming up this weekend, they're 15-9. Southern Miss, who you beat, 16-8, and then Coastal Carolina, they're at the top of the standings at 19-5. So when you look at how the top end of the Sun Belt is shaping up, you have an opportunity that if you're able to get a sweep over App State, you could potentially be in third place. And if things can work in your favor even more, and maybe Southern Miss slips up because they'll have, let's see who they have coming up this weekend. They'll be facing off with James Madison and Georgia Southern, who are teams that are near the bottom half. So Georgia Southern and James Madison are the last two teams in the Sun Belt Conference standings. But anything is possible. It's unlikely, but anything is possible. If things are able to shake out for you, you could be somewhere near the top 2 or 3 teams in the standings. And now you're looking at an even better position as you get towards the Sun Belt Conference Tournament. So how do you get to a regional? Right now, your resume is solid because of your non-conference record of what you had coming into conference play, but it's not a lock just yet, which is why you are considered a bubble team. And likely outside of it's likely that you're an at-large team as of right now. You're probably sitting on the bubble. So path number 1 is to win the Sun Belt Tournament, right? It's an automatic bid, and it's the simplest path that you need to. You go in, you play good baseball, you win a couple games, you win the Sun Belt Conference Tournament, and now you're into the NCAA Regional, and you're going somewhere to try to rally and make chaos happen and go on a potential run in the postseason. That's the clearest way to do it. It's no debate. It's no bubble stress. You go in, you handle your business, and that is likely going to be the most realistic route that you're going to have to take, because even though you have the series win over Southern Miss, the next two opponents that they have are not going to be favored in the series, so they can likely finish off the regular season with those 6 more victories there against James Madison and Georgia Southern. And then you have Coastal Carolina coming to your house, where it's not a guarantee that you can win, but you've proven that you can beat a team that's ranked in the top 25. You've proven that multiple times in this season. The second path that you have is to get the at-large bid. It's a lot more difficult because you're going to need to finish above 500 in conference play. So at minimum, you need to get 15-15, right? But you would preferably like to be 16-14 in the league. You've got to win your next 2 conference series. Okay, so you've got to get 2 out of 3 against Coastal, and you've got to get at least 2 out of 3 against App State. So that would give you 4 wins in 7 games. And then if you can handle business against UNO, so now you're talking about being 35-20. That's a lot more solid resume that you have, because you will have had a Coastal Carolina series victory. You will have had a Southern Miss series victory, a Kansas State victory earlier in the season. Obviously, an LSU victory doesn't mean much now, because at the time they were number 2 in the country. Now they are unranked. But you've had a solid overall run. And then not to mention, you had a victory against Missouri State early in the season, which their RPI, I believe, is still very, very strong. As of late, I don't have it right in front of me, but I can go back and look at that. And then if you can also add 1 to 2 wins in the Sun Belt Conference Tournament, this is a part of path number 2. You can add 1 to 2 wins in the Sun Belt Conference Tournament and avoid bad losses, right? Winning that Georgia State series was huge for you, because that's a team that's not in the same quad as you. And so that's a quote unquote supposed to win type of game. So if you can do those things, you have the potential to get an at-large bid and get into a regional kind of similar to what I believe they did back in 2024. So you're going to have to handle your business. Either way, you're going to have to play some solid baseball down the stretch, which right now you've won 8 of your last 10. You've been playing at a really, really high level, and you have 7 more games on the slate, and they're all winnable. You've got UNO coming to town on Tuesday to close out a 5-game home stretch, and then you head out east to take on App State, who, like I said, is 15-9 in the standings. So you have an opportunity to swap places in the standings with them, just like what you did in Georgia State. And then you have a huge series to close out the regular season against Coastal Carolina, a team that played in the College World Series last season, runners-up, a quality program. And if you can add that to your resume, there's no telling what would be able to happen. So, we'll be keeping an eye on that as Louisiana gets ready to round out their regular season run and start looking towards the Sun Belt Conference Tournament and potentially a regional here in postseason play. That's going to wrap up this episode here on Ragin Rundown. Guys, thank you so much. If you've made it to this point in the video, please do me a favor, like it, share it, and leave a comment down below. But most importantly, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you know when we're dropping episodes just like this one. If you're listening, follow the podcast feed, rate the show, and leave us a review because that's going to help us get in front of more Ragin Cajun fans just like yourself. I'm your guy, Jamarcus Fitzpatrick. We'll see you guys next time.